Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
Vasishtha continued, O Rama, even as the darkness disappears as you turn towards the light, ignorance disappears if you turn towards the light of the self. As long as there does not arise a natural yearning for self-knowledge, so long this ignorance or mental conditioning throws up an endless stream of world appearances. Even as a shadow vanishes when it turns to see the light, this ignorance perishes when it turns towards self-knowledge. O Rama, from Brahma, the Creator, down to the blade of grass, all this is nothing but the self. Ignorance is non-existence, unreality. There is no second thing here known as the mind. In that self itself, the veil floats, creating the polarization of subject-object, and the infinite consciousness itself is then known as the mind. This veil is an idea, an intention or a thought in that infinite consciousness. Mind is born of this idea or thought, and mind has to vanish with the help of an idea or thought, that is, by coming to an end of an idea. The firm conviction that I am not the absolute Brahman binds the mind, and the mind is liberated by the firm conviction that everything is the absolute Brahman. Ideas and thoughts are bondage, and their coming to an end, that is liberation. Therefore, be free of them and do whatever has to be done spontaneously. Even as thought or idea sees the blueness in the sky, the mind sees the world as real. He who does not let his mind dwell on such ideas and thoughts by striving to be conscious of itself enjoys peace. That which was not in the beginning does not even exist now. That which was and therefore is now is the absolute Brahman. Contemplation of this bestows peace, for that Brahman is peace. One should not contemplate anything else at any time and in any manner anywhere. One should uproot the very hope of enjoyment with one's utmost strength and using one's utmost intelligence. Hopes and attachments seem to ramify on account of mental conditioning, which is ignorance. In this empty physical body, where is it that is called I? In truth, O Rama, I, mine, etc., have no existence at all. The one self alone is the truth at all times. It is not a great wonder, O Rama, that people forget the truth that the absolute Brahman alone is, and are convinced of the existence of the unreal and non-existence ignorance. Rama, do not let the foolish idea of existence of ignorance take root in you, for if the consciousness is thus polluted, it invites endless suffering. Though it is unreal, it can cause real suffering. It is on account of ignorance that illusions like a mirage exist, and that one sees various visions and hallucinations, and one experiences heaven and hell. Therefore, O Rama, give up mental conditioning, which alone is responsible for the perception of duality and remain totally unconditioned, then you will attain incomparable preeminence over all. After a few minutes of deep contemplation, Rama asked, "Holy sage, it is indeed incredible that this non-existent nescience creates such an illusion that this non-existent world appears to be very real. Pray, explain to me, how is it possible? Also, please tell me why King Lavana underwent all sorts of suffering. Please tell me who or what is that experience all these sufferings?" Vasishtha replied, "O Rama, it is not really true that the consciousness is in any way related to this body. The body has only been fancied by the consciousness as if in a dream. When consciousness, clothed as it were by its own energy, limits itself and considers itself a jiva, that jiva, endowed with this restless energy, is involved in this world appearance. The embodied beings who enjoy or suffer the fruits of past actions and who don a variety of bodies is known as egotism, mind, and also jiva. Neither the body nor the enlightened being undergoes suffering. It is only the ignorant mind that suffers. It is only in a state of ignorance, like sleep, that the mind dreams of the world appearance, not when it is awake or enlightened. Hence, the embodied beings that undergo suffering here is variously known as the mind, ignorance, jiva, and mental conditioning, as also the individualized consciousness. The body is insentient and hence cannot enjoy and neither suffer. Nescience gives rise to the heedlessness and unwisdom. Hence, it is nescience alone that enjoys or suffers. It is indeed the mind alone that is born, weeps, kills, abuses others, etc., not the body. In all the experiences of happiness and unhappiness, as also in all the hallucinations and imaginations, it is mind that does everything, and it is mind that experiences all this. Mind is man. I shall narrate to you the reason for the suffering of King Lavana. Lavana was a descendant of Harishchandra. Lavana thought, "My grandfather performed the religious rite and became a great man. I should also perform the same rite." He gathered the necessary materials and the religious men, and he performed the rite mentally for a whole year while sitting in his own garden. Since he had thus successfully completed the religious rite performed mentally, he was entitled to its fruits. O Rama, thus you see that the mind alone is the performer of all actions, and hence it is also the experiencer of all happiness and unhappiness. Therefore, guide your mind along the path of salvation. Rama, I myself was a witness to the scene in the King Lavana's court, and when they wished to know who the juggler was, after he had abruptly disappeared from the court, I saw his identity through my subtle vision and found that he was a messenger of the gods. It is the tradition that Indra would send all sort of afflictions to test the strength of anyone who engaged himself in that particular rite, which Ravana was performing mentally. The hallucination he had experienced were the result of that. The rite was performed by the mind, and a hallucination were experienced by the mind also. When the same mind is thoroughly purified, you will get rid of all duality and diversity which creates it. Rama, I have already narrated to you the process of cyclic creations and of how one comes to entertain the false notion of I and mine. Equipped with wisdom, he who gradually ascends the 7 steps of perfection in yoga attains liberation from these. Rama asked, Holy Sir, what are the 7 steps you have referred to? Vasishtha replied, O Rama, there are 7 descending steps of ignorance and 7 ascending steps of wisdom. I shall now describe them to you. To remain established in self-knowledge is liberation. When this is disturbed, there arises egotism and bondage. The state of self-knowledge is that in which there is no mental agitation, neither distraction nor dullness of mind, neither egotism nor perception of diversity. The delusion that veils the self-knowledge is 7-folds. The seed state of wakefulness, great wakefulness, wakeful dream, dream wakefulness, and sleep. In pure consciousness, where mind and jiva exist only in name, it is a seed state of wakefulness. When notions of I and this arise, it is also known as wakefulness. When these notions get strengthened by the memory of previous incarnation, it is great wakefulness. When the mind is fully awake to its own fancies and is filled with them, it is wakeful dream. The false notion of experiences during sleep, which yet appears to be real, are dreams. In the dream wakeful state, one recalls past experiences as if they are real now. When these are abandoned in favor of total inert dullness, it is sleep. These 7 have their own innumerable subdivisions. I shall now describe to you, O Rama, 7 states or planes of wisdom. Knowing them, you will not be caught in delusion. Pure wish or intention is the first. Inquiry is the second. The third is when the mind becomes subtle. Establishment in the truth is the fourth. Total freedom from attachment or bondage is the fifth. The sixth is the cessation of objectivity, and the 7th is beyond all these. Why do I continue to be a fool? I shall seek holy men in scripture, having cultivated this passion. Such a wish is the first state. Thereupon, one engages in the practice of inquiry or direct observation. With all these, there arises non-attachment, and the mind becomes subtle and transparent. This is the third state. When these 3 are practiced, there arise in the seeker a natural turning away from the sense pleasures, and there is a natural dwelling in truth. This is the fourth state. When all these are well practiced, there is total non-attachment and at the same time a conviction in the nature of truth. It is the fifth state. Then one rejoices in the one's own self. The perception of duality and diversity, both within oneself and outside oneself, ceases, and the effort that one made at the inspiration of others bear fruition in the direct spiritual experiences. After this, there is no other support, no division, no diversity, and self-knowledge is spontaneous, natural, and therefore unbroken. This is the seventh state, or the transcendental state. This is the state of one who is liberated while living here. Beyond this is the state of the one who has transcended even the body, Turyatita, Rama. All these great ones who ascended these seven planes of wisdom are holy men. They are liberated and they do not fall into the mire of happiness and unhappiness. They may or may not work or be active. They rejoice in the self and do not stand in need of others to make them happy. The highest state of consciousness can be attained by all, even by animals and by primitive men, by those who have a body and even by the disembodied beings, for it involves only the rise of wisdom. They who have reached the highest planes of consciousness are indeed great men. They are adorable. Even an emperor is like a worthless blade of grass compared to them, for they are liberated here and now. With this, we finish today's chapter. See you again.